I think I understood in the 80s how special the National was because it was still a collector-based show. And I don't think it's a collector-based show anymore. There's still some collector bases involved, but I don't think it's quite the same collector-based show. I remember at the 80 National, my good friend Dee Robinson had tables and she had boxes of 1980s commons. And she said the sheer work she had, and she did great with them, lifting up the boxes of the commons in numerical order for people to fill their set, kept her busy the entire weekend. Nowadays, you can't bring commons with you unless they're pre-1980 or you bring the value boxes.
It's evolved. But what you're saying is that 83 was the high point for you, your favorite one?
It's
You've
my
got
favorite
30
one.
more. Just your
It's my favorite one because it was the first.
Okay.
I
My
had never
favorite
seen
one is the next one. I really think that's going to be the best one and the favorite one. I'm really looking forward to.
But I met you in 84. That was the next one. But that's where I met you officially, or I said I met you officially.
Yeah, that's true.
So I can say that's my favorite one too. 85, for the reason I described, wasn't my favorite. 90, we had our interview the day after the 90 National. I should say that's one of my favorite ones. And my favorite and least favorite one at the same point is the 91 National. Because that was such a cyclone.
Chaotic.
It was chaotic. I was so just trying to get through the weekend. On the first promo night, I'm sitting there, and I believe their names are like Mark Shreve and Bernie Lytle. And they were dealers Theo and I knew from Arkansas, I believe they were. And good guys. And we all got so scared, we left the floor and went to some concession area away from the show just to get away from everything that was going on. I was literally afraid for my life at that point. It calmed down a little after that, but I was literally afraid for my life.
For a stampede or what?
Yes.
Because there was a stampede in Chicago a few years after that.
And like 93, the stampede was you just don't get in the way of the people going to the corporate areas. You still have the rush of the bulls going to the corporate area every morning. But now it's a little more dispersed on how you get to the corporate areas.
They don't put them all in the same exact place. One of the things I was reminiscing about nationals is that I don't like standing in lines. Kyle has a line for the autograph guests sometimes, but other than that, there's not a line. And the National can have lines for autograph guests that Jeff Rosenberg and his team manage pretty well. But there's extensive lines and noise from some of the corporate booths that is disruptive.
You don't want to be near the Topps booth when Alan Norris is doing his stuff. To me, one of my favorite moments at a National, and he doesn't work for them anymore. And no, he's not the same Michael Eisner that owned Topps. But if you remember the famous 55 Bowman pack opening when the guy pulled the mantle, the guy who was ripping the pack and doing all that, his name was Michael Eisner. And he's a good Jersey boy. Yeah, but as I said, not that Michael Eisner. And we were at the ComC booth, and I don't know how far away it was from where he was talking about the mantle, but we could hear the scream at the ComC booth at that moment from how far away it was because it was so exciting to have the 55 Bowman mantle pulled from a pack. That's just something. You and I are old enough, we pulled mantles from packs. You pulled Clementes from pack. I pulled Clementes from pack. When John Brogy got some of the 1960 Topps packs from Alan Rosen and we opened them in the store, because I was doing some part-time work for John at the time, and I opened the 3 packs. I got a mantle in the 3rd pack, and I said, I don't have to open anything more. I'm done. I've opened the mantle. Now, can I keep this since who opens it keeps it? That was a joke, obviously. I was not keeping that card, but getting a mantle in a pack was a real thrill. And I can imagine how Michael felt opening that pack for whoever paid all that money for the space. And the guy got a 9 from it. But I will be interested to see what, if anything, SGC does at the show, since their CEO, Peter Steinberg, just stepped down today. That is now official. A lot of times when you sell a company, your upper management gets 1, 2, 3 years of working for the new people because they want to make sure it's a smooth transition. So there are major changes going on at SGC. On a corporate level, that's something I'm curious about. That's the type of thing I actually like to be there for, even more than going through the value boxes.
The greatest job security in this industry is somebody that has grading expertise.
Yes.
because I think that's a growth industry. I've got a new question for you, and let's put it in terms of the national, and that is that it's possible that this national will be the biggest and the best forever. By that, it's possible the hobby, maybe it'll never peak, but it's possible things are so hot right now, we'll get 150,000 people. And then next year, it could drop off a little bit. The year after that, it could drop off a little, but being in the Chicago at the same time. And so the signs that I was going to tell people, how would you know if you hit the peak? And you've thought about that a little bit. Number one, when something peaks, it's because there are a lot more sellers than buyers. And so this guy was asking me about tennis cards, and he wanted me to do an episode about tennis cards. I said, if I go to the National and I'll see a lot of tennis cards, that'll tell me a couple things. They've arrived, and maybe they're worthy of an episode. But if I don't see very many tennis cards, that means they haven't arrived. I'm probably not going to do an episode, and they might be a buying opportunity because they're not being hyped enough to be out there under glass. When you see fabulous stuff under glass, that means people are willing to sell. And if there's more sellers than buyers, it can start the downward trend. So I hope that's not the case. I'm famous for saying I want things to go up a little bit each year, but the hobby doesn't work that way.
You just triggered a memory.
Okay.
I was in first base one night, and Gervis comes in to Wayne's store. And this is 1991. How I guess Gervis was a consultant for NetPro that did really the first American tennis card. When I say American, there was Fax Packs that did a tennis set in
That was
1980s.
international, though. Yeah.
That was international. NetPro was more American. And I just reacted like, there's something wrong because everybody's getting a card made of them. My instinct was, and remember, I did stats at the US Tennis Open. I love tennis. And I'm going to digress for a second. I knew that getting out of dealing and working for you was going to be a better mood. And I don't know why this struck me at this precise second, but I know I was right. At the time, the number one American junior in 1989 was a young man by the name of Ivan Barron. And everybody thought he was going to be the hot shot. It turned out he never was. And I'm reading his bio in the press box because we worked out of the press box. And his hobby was collecting baseball cards. And something struck me at that precise second that if that's his hobby, we're too popular.
And this is working on his game.
This is why when we were doing the Sabre convention, I told the story about going to the Cards and More show in Allen and then going to In-N-Out Burger for lunch where the young lady's father is collecting cards. I showed her a copy of my newsletter. Oh, yeah, Dad definitely wants that. Okay, so give me his email. And I added him to my newsletter list. Then I went to Kroger because my car had just been inspected. And all three people at the Kroger, including the guy behind the counter and two women, one whose husband was a collector and one who's had a friend whose husband had just passed, and they had cards and she wanted to know what to do with them. They all knew about sports cards. And I told this at Sabre, the story, which may or may not be true, John D. Rockefeller selling all his stocks in September 1929 when the shoe shine boys telling him about what stocks he's buying. Because at that point, he says, too many people know about the stock market. I'm almost worried if too many people know about baseball cards. And I'm a big fan of people knowing.
It's not about the knowing, it's how they act on that behavior. And what happened in the junk wax era is that everybody knew about it. They were all over the place. But then people started not collecting, not even hoarding, but investing in their own mind. They were putting cases in their garage. And so the In-N-Out Burger, if the dad of the person behind the counter is a collector and is thinking about collecting and buying some cards here and there, that's different than buying a case or two, putting them away, because you're not really a collector. So I think we would need all the collectors we can get. But if they're going to be investors or dealers, which a lot of people have gotten into dealing, that's the equilibrium. You have to have enough collectors to support. I really don't want to see a lot of people buying cases of new product and putting it away. Open it, let's get it going. That's how the card companies should know that they're producing appropriately to demand.
How about a counter to this? The growth of breaking actually helps people not put away cases.
Exactly. So that's a
So
positive.
there are actually
Getting
benefits to
things out
breaking.
there. I want more people to know about collecting, but really collecting, not just the flipping or the investing. And hey, this is a great way to make money. The great way to make money, this is going to sound self-serving, but I don't know that I'm trying to make money, but I'm not losing money. And most of the schemes I've heard involve a lot more risk. Now, I'm not making a lot of money, but I'm buying low and selling not high, but I'm just selling. I'm having positive transactions that add up instead of thinking I'm going to buy high and sell higher. And
Well,
I'm going to buy into a break and I'm going to get less than the value because that's the expectation.
you said something very trenchant, like maybe 2 shows ago at the Dallas card shows, we're going through value boxes. And he says, we're buying these cards. We can't lose when we buy these cards. We can break even, we can make money. And even if we lose something, what are we losing? I went to a triple card and Plano trade night the other night. And there are like 4 or 5 people who came. They were all doing Pokemon. A couple of them bought boxes. And I, of course, with my quote journalistic background, nicely, not hard, but asked about what they do. And some guy had just bought a box for $250 while I was there and opened it with his daughter. So it was good father-daughter activity,
Yeah.
which we do appreciate. And anytime you get your daughter, and she was collecting too. So she enjoyed, she had something where she could keep a lot of her cards, very nice. She's going to be a collector, I'm convinced, at least of the TCG stuff, for hopefully for a long time. Or after she learns about boys and goes to college and comes back to collecting, she'll remember the fun she had when she was young. And they didn't come close to getting their money out of the $250 for the box, but they had fun opening it. And he could afford it. He wasn't going broke doing it. And that's fine. If you do too much of that and you ring up too much debt, it's a problem in the
But
sports
that's the
card.
order of collecting. If they bought the box and the daughter says, "Hey, Dad, that's great. Can we open it?" He says, "Oh, no, we can't open it. We got to put it away." That's not what collectors should be doing, I don't think. I'm being judgmental, but if you're really a collector, you love opening packs. You want to open the packs and see what you got. Even if you got less than your money's worth, you still had the enjoyment of doing it. And like you said, it's a father-daughter experience. Yeah. But to say, "Hey, daughter, sorry, we're buying this for our collection. We're going to put it away. Who do we get, Daddy?" I don't know who we got, but whoever we got, they're going to be safe and secure at home in the closet under lock and key. That's a
That's no
different kind
fun.
of collecting. And it's not fun. Then you don't go back. She's liable to come back and buy the cards that she didn't get when they opened the pack, the ones that she was hoping to get. That's what's happening now. And the problem with our industry is if when they come back, the prices, actually, if the prices are way low, that's maybe not even that much of a problem. A lot of the junk wax stuff is not expensive now. Now there's always something they can aspire to that's more expensive, but it's if the prices are really high, if the junk wax stuff all of a sudden got really hot, which I don't know how that it could, but because there's so much.
The unopened has done very well ever since the pandemic. Pre-pandemic, we had a pretty stable market in junk overproduced wax. Wholesale was $3 a box. Show retail was $5 a box. Store retail was $10 a box.
Yeah.
It was a pretty standard world. Now you can't do anything like that anymore.
So do you think the hobby's peaked? Do you think this will be the national that is the peak?
I don't know if it's peak, but I'm concerned. Because peak may be the wrong word, but you have to keep upping your game in today's world. You know, Tops was the only game in town when we started, but you didn't really have to up your game every year. You could drift along. In the 1980s, it was a really goofy world. It was the only world where the longer your cards sat on the shelf, the more they went up in price as unopened. But
not going to be always the case.
One of the saving graces is that Fanatics, Tops, and Panini to a lesser extent has understood that the stores need blaster boxes. They have to buy them, obviously, and they don't get the markup a Walmart or a Target does, but they get them into the stores. So the person coming in with $20, $25, $30 can walk out with a box.
You have to have price points that are inviting. They can't walk in and say, "Hey, there's nothing under $100. That's above a curiosity amount for most people.
Exactly. And so that's been really good. that they've focused on getting affordable boxes. Obviously, not on every product. Some of the high-end products you're not going to have affordable boxes on, but at least on your heritages, your base tops, you have the blaster boxes at the store. And if you pay 25 or 30, even if you pay a little more than Walmart, it's an affordable entree point for a lot of people. And you can have fun opening the packs. They usually have some special insert, like 3 green parallels or something of interest and value guaranteed out of your box. And if you get a nice tip, then you really win, but you don't really lose. And I think that's a great way to get people into the hobby.
I'd rather buy this blaster box than go to the movies and get popcorn, or go to a restaurant, not a expensive restaurant, but depending on what they're doing. But when the boxes are $400, that's like taking a vacation for some people. It's not an impulse buy for a lot of people.
A lot of people who look at stuff or think, okay, if I buy this, I have to make money.
I just think, if in doubt, I'm going to buy it. Then when I get home, if I made a mistake, I'm going to learn from that mistake. You'd think I would have made enough mistakes that I don't need to learn anymore, but they keep coming out with new cards.
There's so
And
much
that's the
stuff
fun of it for me.
And the thing is, for us, we're seeing cards we never saw before.
Never saw before.
And that for us is the win.